Hi guys, the Cognizant Man reporting. I love how tour guys get mad if I was to label Tour man syndrome for being disorderly or aggressive or just, you know, acting up in a very, very antisocial fashion. Like this comment here. I think you're confusing it with Napoleon Complex. I bet you're the only person paying attention to his height. Do tall black guys do this? I don't know what race has to do with this, but he goes on to say that, Napoleon Complex is a legit psychological issue, and that I'm trying to create one for tall people that doesn't exist. Well, neither does Napoleon Complex. It's been debunked. It's not registered as a syndrome or psychological illness, even with the American Psychological Association. I think that's what it's called. And in other words, there's no psychology or psychiatry organization that actually, how do I say it, has substantialized it as being a legitimate illness. And there's been many discussions, many studies surrounding Napoleon Complex or Little Man Syndrome, and none of the people involved are able to conclude or legitimize that, short men have an illness of some sort, a psychological one at that. So it doesn't exist. But anyway, it's just funny how a lot of these tour guys get mad if short men bring up their height and criticize them for their disorderly behavior. But it's alright for them to do it to us. Like he then proceeds to accuse me of having a Napoleon complex just for making this video, or just for, hear this comment. You were putting Napoleon complex on full display here. Because I wrote this in response. Nope, Napoleon complex is pseudoscience, blah, 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 blah. And then I wrote, funny how it's okay for shortmen to be smeared with an illness, but you get defensive when it happens to tallmen. And then I said, here's a compromise. If Napoleon complex or little man syndrome exists, then by God, tall man syndrome, Goliath complex exists as well, or neither don't. Neither, it's either one or the other. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And then his only response is, you are putting Napoleon Complex on full display here. So what does Napoleon Complex mean? Does it mean short men are aggressive? Is it we're overcompensating? Is it when we counter-argue, normies defaming us and dehumanizing us? So if I'm trying to defend short men against such, dehumanizing terms, and I don't know how to say it. Stupid things like Napoleon Complex, these slanders, these intentional dehumanizing rituals, right? Am I now considered Napoleon Complex or having little man syndrome? According to this guy. And it's not just him, all these tall guys and women do it. As a short guy, anything you do is going to be Napoleon Complex or little man syndrome. And we shouldn't let it demoralize us either. I'm not going to stop making videos pointing out heightism, misandric shortism, and posting shorts of, tour guys being, misbehaving in public and all that, being a nuisance, and calling out the double standards, If it was a short guy, everyone would say little man syndrome, Napoleon complex. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. Sorry, it's just something that I really wanted to make a video on because it's just so annoying. Read the comments anyway. It's under this short. So, it's just pathetic. It just amazes me how, whatever a tour guy does, we can't correlate his height with his actions. We can't mention his height. People even say, what's his height got to do with it? You see on insecure. You sound like a short man. You have little man syndrome. And that's the double standard right there. It's alright for them to denigrate us, to correlate our height with our actions or our beliefs. Anyway, it's annoying. It really is. It is frustrating, but again, it's not going to demoralize me, because that's the benefit with these shaming rituals or these slanders. You know, if anything a short man does is going to be considered little man syndrome or Napoleon complex, either way, well then so be it. You know, I'm not going to let it demoralize me. And every short man should be like that. Keep fighting. Keep speaking out against misandric shortism, heightism against shortmen. You know, keep speaking out against the double standards. How tall men get away with certain things, but then short men can't. And women as well. You know, defend yourself, defend other short men. Don't let these normies, who are mostly women and tall guys, who are very privileged and entitled in life, don't let them get you down. And yeah, you know, just, and really, like in this situation, really elucidate what they're saying. You know, it's alright for him to smear short men as Napoleon complex, and for him to perpetuate the lie that it's a psychological issue, that it's a legit, concrete psychological illness, little man syndrome, Napoleon complex. But then if I say it about a tall man, oh, God forbid, you know, that's discrimination. You know, what does height have to do with it? Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks. Mail it out.